let's talk about marriage. But we're going to do it through a pretty wild lens. Cold War era nuclear strategy. And yes, you absolutely heard that right. We're going to explore how the very same principles that kept superpowers from blowing each other up can also help you figure out whose turn it is to buy milk. This is the surprising world of game theory in relationship. So what on earth does a global crisis have in common with a fight brewing in your kitchen? Well, on the left, you've got a nuclear standoff that could have literally ended the world. And on the right, a husband and wife staring down a completely empty fridge. The surprising link here is that they are both high-stakes negotiations. They're both a strategic battle of wills between two players. And this brings us to what we're calling the marital Cold War. You know that feeling, right? That tense moment where neither person wants to be the one to give in, whether the prize is global dominance or just a carton of milk. This kind of standoff is a textbook example of something called the game of chicken. Back in 1962, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, the US and the Soviet Union pushed each other right to the edge of nuclear war. For 13 days, the entire world just held its breath, waiting to see which superpower was going to blink, which one would be the chicken and back down first. Okay, so now let's bring this right down to the household level. Swap out those world leaders for Joel and Lisa. Their fridge, it's been empty for 3 straight days. See, Joel went shopping the last 5 Saturdays in a row, but Lisa feels like she does everything else around the house. So what happens? They keep ordering pizza, they're both getting indigestion, and they're just waiting. Who's going to cave and go to the supermarket? It is the exact same game, just, with pepperoni instead of plutonium. So, how do we actually navigate these standoffs without starting World War III in the kitchen? Well, this is where our secret weapon comes in. Let's talk about game theory. At its heart, game theory is really just the art of strategic thinking. Now, I know, that sounds kind of cold and calculating, but it's really about admitting a simple truth. Your best move almost always depends on the move your partner is about to make. Game theory just helps you analyze that whole interaction and hopefully make smarter choices. And this is the big mindset shift right here. It's not about winning in the sense of just getting everything you want. It's about getting the best possible results for you. And what are those circumstances? It's the simple fact that there's another person in this equation, your spouse, who is also trying to get their best results. Okay, let's see how this actually plays out in a real-life example. First up, we've got the polarization problem. This is when a tiny little difference of opinion just snowballs into a full-blown conflict. Sound familiar? So meet Ariel and Ryan. They start out totally on the same page. Their apartment is way too small for them and their toddler, so they agree. It's time to move. A simple, cooperative goal, everything's great. But pretty quickly, a split starts to appear. Ariel really loves their trendy neighborhood, with the organic markets and the easy commute. Ryan, on the other hand, wants more bang for their buck, even if it means moving a few subway stops further out. Just a minor difference in preference, right? Wrong. Their positions hardened and fast. Ariel started accusing Ryan of being willing to put their son's safety at risk, just for a bigger apartment. Ryan shot back that Ariel was just being a snob who was afraid to live next to people who didn't look like her. All of a sudden, the argument wasn't about apartments anymore. It was about their character. They were completely polarized. Game theorists have a name for this kind of stuckness. It's called a Nash equilibrium. Basically, it's a point where neither person has any reason to change what they're doing. I mean, think about it. If Ariel gives in, she feels like she loses. If Ryan caves, he feels like he loses. So since neither of them can get a better outcome by changing their mind alone, they just do nothing. They're perfectly and frustratingly deadlocked. And here's why this matters. Just recognizing you're in a Nash equilibrium is the first huge step to breaking out of it. So how'd they break the deadlock? With collusion. Now look, in business, that's illegal, but in a marriage, it's actually a great strategy. They started sharing the information they've been hiding from each other. Ariel admitted she might consider moving if they could get a car. Ryan confessed he was worried that giving in on this would set a bad precedent for future arguments. Once all that hidden info was out in the open, they could actually cooperate and find a compromise. A bigger apartment on a less desirable block, but still in the same neighborhood. It was a win-win. All right, let's move on to our next game. This is one of the most famous ideas in all of game theory. It's called the prisoner's dilemma, and it perfectly explains why, sometimes, we act selfishly, even when we know deep down that cooperating would be better for everyone involved. So here's the classic setup. You've got 2 suspects, Pat and Joe, and they're being interrogated in separate rooms. Let's look at their options. If they both stay silent, if they cooperate with each other, they each get just 1 year in jail. That's the best combined outcome.
But if Pat snitches while Joe stays silent, Pat gets to walk free. That's a huge temptation, right? The catch? If they both snitch on each other, they both get 5 years. So no matter what the other guy does, it always seems like it's in your own best interest to snitch. The problem is your partner is thinking the exact same thing. So you both defect, and you both end up way worse off. Now let's map this onto a marriage with the homework dilemma. Heather and Pradeep agree they're going to take turns playing bad cop to get their son to do his homework. But being the bad cop is exhausting. The best outcome for everyone is right there in the top left box. They both cooperate, the homework gets done, and you get spousal peace. But the temptation to just slack off is huge. If Heather plays bad cop but Pradeep decides to slack off, she has a miserable night. So to avoid that risk, she's tempted to slack off too. And this leads them right down to that bottom right corner. They both give up, the homework doesn't get done, and everybody is annoyed. So the huge question is, how do you escape this trap? The solution is to literally change the rules of the game with something called a commitment device. You create a new, binding rule, one with real consequences, that makes cooperating the only logical option.
So here's the new rule that Heather and Pradeep came up with. If you skip your turn as bad cop, you have to be the bad cop every single night for a full week. Bam. Suddenly, the cost of not cooperating is way too high. The temptation to cheat is pretty much gone because the consequence is so painful. Cooperation now becomes the only smart move.
Okay, so we've seen how these games play out. Let's bring this all together with 3 core principles for your own winning strategy. These are designed to turn these marital games into actual mutual victories. First, think ahead. Before you make a move, seriously try to predict how your partner will react. Second, learn from the past. If a certain approach led to a big fight last time, maybe try a different one. And third, and this is the most important one, put yourself in their shoes. And I mean really in their shoes. The key here is to think about what they would actually do in their situation based on their personality and their history, not what you would do if you were them.
You know, at the end of the day, being strategic isn't about trying to manipulate your partner. It's the art of finding ways to cooperate. It's about communicating and really understanding each other's motivations so you can finally stop playing against each other. So the final question to leave you with is this. What game are you playing in your relationship? And how can you change the rules so that you can win together?